boxes. I heard on a video of a fantasy author recently. They were talking about the genreification, in a way. That's a new word too. Just because you couldn't have genreification unless the genreification started happening, and then people needed a word to call it genreification. But the putting all these subgenres and things and tropes and boxes and like the way something happens and then people identify it and then they call it those. A lot of, unfortunately, self-publishing today and like having the ability for everybody in the world can put a story on the market is great. The only way that stories get in front of people on the market today, if you do it yourself, is basically playing to algorithms and like cheating and gaming the system, which is unfortunate. And everybody knows this in the industry, unfortunately. Like, you gotta game the system because it's the only way anything works, because that's the way the system is. It's so you can now have anybody tell a story, and the only way that you're ever going to find the story is if they have played the system well. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to find it. So from the author side, you have to game that system so anybody can find it. And like, so on a reader and writer side, it's a little obnoxious that way. But the only ways to really game the system today, it's algorithm and keyword based and that type of stuff. So you write in like tropes, what genres, what subgenres you have, and all this other stuff. So now a lot of people are thinking in those terms. The language that they're using has shaped the symbolism in their mind to refer to stories in these terms, and have started to write very much within these boxes. And the guys
to be seen.
Yeah, to be seen, and as well just even if they don't intend to, because the language is in their mind with all these subcategories now, the way they actually talk about their own books when they're even in the writing process or before going into it, they'll think of things in those terms, and that has immediately boxed them before they even start writing the story to fit within things that otherwise, if those terms weren't there, they probably would have thought more freeformly, more loosely, and created something wholly new.
Well, it's like if I'm writing about two people who are falling in love, and then I'm like, oh, that's a romance. Oh, what do romances have? Oh, the better, blah, 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 blah. And I don't even consciously do that, but I just start to include things I know already about romances. Then I'm already done.
Yeah. Like the romance genre. Another author. It's just a topic that comes up once in a while. But another guy I just mentioned, he was talking about fantasy being like, it's still such a niche thing. Like the Sword and Sorcery or Lord of the Rings, there's still people who despite the movies being so popular and stuff, still don't really know what it is because maybe they didn't watch the movie, and there's no way they read the book if they didn't watch the movie. And it's just like, so it's so niche. But then over 70% of the market is romance that follows very specific beats. About half of it is basically just porn. It's just erotica. And it's just like not necessarily junk food, but it follows those beats so well that even if you wanted to write a romance, then it breaks down to this, like, how do you write a romance? And then it ends up in these beats, and it ends up so categorized and all this other stuff. There's no creativity. And so well over half of the stories ever told on the market in a prose form, there is no creativity there. Just by definition, by technicality, it doesn't actually exist. It's just like every once in a while I created a fun, playful sentence or something. But chances are, if you're writing in that genre, you probably also read a lot of that genre and you're following these beats, so you're just kind of regurgitating things. So most stories told in the world there's no creativity in them. So we're already like halfway to AI generated stuff anyway. It's just people regurgitating and regenerating things anyway. So that definitions kill creativity goes deep. Like, it goes deep into things that, like, even the story beats themselves of the actual events, and like happily ever after, and starts with protagonist, and like just on a sentence structure level all the way down to the nitty gritty it's all so embedded into the way we see everything. Yeah. And that is becoming even more prominent in the most creative fields like fantasy and science fiction and speculative fiction, of just coming up with completely fantastical things. That genreification has become necessary for that stuff to fit within algorithms, and because there's such a broad storyscape, like you need terms to define things. One of the ways that somebody said it is like, I like Game of Thrones. What's a good book like Game of Thrones? And people start throwing tropes at them and all these like buzzwords and things, and the person's like, I'll just read it again. I'll read Game of Thrones again. Like they don't want to read another book because it's just the only way that people would talk to them about it is no longer the way that they would have in the past before all these new keywords and things came in. And like now it's grimdark. That word didn't even exist when Game of Thrones started. Like but now they would just hear that term and be like, I don't really know what that means. What? And when you give them like 15 words that are loosely just definitions. There's no symbol that represents it. Just definitions. Instead of the person talking to them about like, hey, what do you like about, is this your favorite character arc? And like, actually talking to them about what they got from the story and what the symbol represents and what the story is. Now it's just these terms that can categorize things so they can put them into an internet browser to keyword search and find more things like it. And that's what it has really just come down to. And yeah.